Cheryl Strayed is a writer, a free spirit, an adventurer, an experienced trekker through wilderness and through life. Her mesmerizing memoir is called Wild, From Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail, a trail not designed for sissies. As Oscar Wilde said, one should always be a little improbable.
I've always loved Oscar Wilde.
Me too. That wallpaper quote. We won't go there. But you're a big reader. You had Faulkner on the trail with you and Adrienne Rich and all of that, and you had 11 condoms. Really?
Yeah. Well, you know, I was 26 years old and single. You know, I like to be prepared. You know, funnily enough, I was, wildly unprepared in some ways and wildly overprepared in other ways.
Unprepared how?
Well, I just didn't imagine, for example, what it meant to be in the high Sierras in a year, unbeknownst to me, that had been a record snow year. So I get out to the trail and I find that hundreds of miles were buried under, snow. So I never imagined that, didn't prepare for that, didn't learn how to use an ice axe until I was out there.
Did you have an ice axe?
Well, I had one sent to me in one of my boxes, but I didn't know how to use it.
Didn't know how to use it.
But I learned, the thing is about life and backpacking, and many of the experiences I've had, motherhood, writing a book, that you learn by doing it. And you make some mistakes along the way, and that's how you really learn how to do something.
Well, you did find a ski pole along the way.
I did. Now, see that, I should have brought a trekking pole. I brought condoms, but I didn't bring a trekking pole. Right. And then at the place where I ditched the condoms, because I get out there and I realize, okay, this is not what's going to be happening for me out here.
Like too tired.
You're too tired, you're too dirty, there are no showers. I mean, I really didn't bathe for weeks on end.
Did you get to a point where you didn't even smell yourself? And I know that sounds like an odd question, but when you've been in the bush for a while.
Yes. Yes, you do reach that point. And things, for example, when I first began hiking, I brought deodorant with me. And pretty quickly I realized it was actually useless. And so I ditched that too, and everyone did. It was just the way of the trail.
And the pleasures along the way. A shower and a campsite, what?
The beauty of the hike was what you would get after this time of deprivation. So you looked, that shower you got 2 weeks after having not had a shower was just like bliss. It was ecstasy. That meal you got, that cooked meal in a restaurant, or that cold Snapple lemonade, or whatever it was, that glass of wine that I would get at that one bar that I came to after a month of hiking. Food never tasted so good. A shower never felt so good.
Did you hear noises? It's so silent, I know, in the wilderness, but did you hear noises in the night when you're in your little green tent in your home and thinking, was it a grizzly? Was it a coyote?
Of course.
Was it a man?
The thing is about the wilderness, we say it's silent. And it's just that the sounds are different. It's actually not I mean, there is a vast sense of silence because you're so alone. I didn't encounter another human being for the first 8 days of my hike. No humans. 8 days, right off the bat. And that was an anomaly. Usually it was 2 or 3 days, however, that I would go without seeing another person. And so there is this vast sense of solitude and silence. But yes, the world comes alive, the wild world. And was I startled sometimes? Yes. Did I sometimes wonder, what is that?
A rattlesnake will do that on the trail.
Which is what's great about rattlesnakes. I found them to be the most polite animal. They would
really.
They would say rattle, 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 and so then
don't step on me.
I wouldn't step on them, which is a great technique.
I'm sure
they always alerted me to their presence.
A coyote or two.
Yes, the beauty. I loved the sound most nights of the coyotes yipping in the distance.
Were you lonely?
When I wasn't.
Not often. Every once in a while I was. Every once in a while I would hunger for company, and that would be that wonderful experience then when that person did come down the trail, and we would talk, and there was always this great sense of curiosity and interest, and like I said earlier, kinship.
Did you spend times sobbing away in your tent about your life so far, or did you not cry much?
I didn't cry much, which I began to notice pretty early into the hike, because I had gotten divorced the month before I began my trip. I was still in deep grief over my mother. I felt that I had failed. I had gotten involved with heroin, which had really brought me to the bottom. All of these things before my hike had made it so that I cried almost every day. I was really in that emotional
in the
world.
city.
in the city. And I got out onto the trail, and after about a week out, I thought, and here I'd been, having a really hard time. I mean, it was really physically hard, and never once cried. And I just thought, what's happening here? And what had happened is I was pulled out of that emotional realm and into the physical realm.
And they say if you challenge yourself enough physically, you will move ahead mentally.
And it's absolutely what happened to me. I think anyone, there's a reason that people train for a marathon after they've survived cancer, or, they want to do a triathlon or this hike like I did.
Right.
I think that there's a relationship between emotional pain and physical pain, and an emotional healing and physical triumph. And I didn't know that consciously until I was doing it, and it ended up being just exactly what I needed. This hike really did pull me forward.
How good are your spidey senses? Your intuition? How good is it?
Very good. I found that very seldom am I wrong when it comes to that gut sense of things.
And you knew you had to listen to it, especially in the wilderness, and especially when you're a woman alone. I know you met many characters along the way, which we'll save, but did a lot of the men, especially a few of the rednecks, say, "Girl,
yes,
what are you doing out here?"
Well,
I wouldn't let my wife
all summer
do
long,
this.
all summer long, and even only a tiny fraction of those interactions are even in the book. But yes, every time I made contact with somebody who was working in one of these towns or the post, where I'd go and get my resupply boxes, yes, they would always say, "What are you doing here? If I were your boyfriend or your husband or your brother or your father, I wouldn't let you." And I would always just laugh and say, "Well, I didn't ask you to give me permission."
Okay, but was there a time you really did want to quit? You thought, "I am a titch crazy. I should just go home."
Well, I've always known I'm a titch crazy.
Titch crazy. Well, that's good.
There were times that I was really miserable, and usually in connection to things like, if it was just searing heat, and I would think, "Okay, this is just too much. I am out of here." And of course, it would only
How
be,
hot?
oh gosh, I mean, so wiltingly hot. I mean, 105 degrees, and I'm carrying a enormous pack, and I have blisters, and I'm honestly chafed everywhere. My pack is on my body, and no shade, and having to walk up a mountain and down the other side. I mean, really hard.
Sure, and not sure you have water.
Well, one time I ran
water.
out.
You did. That reservoir story is quite something.
I ran
What do you
out.
do when you had a water purifier, but
no water?
no water?
I mean, a purifier won't do you any good if you don't have water, a water source. And I think that moment in the hike was really the most dangerous.
Yes.
Because I really was, it was in the low hundreds, and I was alone, and there was no water. There was supposed to be water in one place, and there wasn't, and I had to hike another 5 miles. And as I was hiking those 5 miles, I knew I could arrive at this next reservoir, and that could be empty. It wasn't, but it was the muddiest water you can imagine, and it was what I had to drink.
Ew. And did you throw some iodine in it or something?
I filtered it and put iodine in it. It was this muck, but I drank it happily.
I bet.
And it was hot. It was like hot as tea.
Yeah, off to the Four Seasons I go, or I would have gone had there been a Four Seasons anywhere near the Sierra Nevadas or the Cascades or Crater Lake.
You're not a wilderness girl yourself.
Apparently not. I love being in the wilderness, but 2-3 days.
Right.
I was raised kind of a bush baby, so I'm okay there.
Yeah.
But it's the how long did it take you all in?
94 days.
94 days. And
a little more than 3 months.
I would have liked to have like $400 in my backpack, not 65 cents, like you had saying, okay, you're in the little corner store, right? And there's food, and you smell burgers and fries, and there's a cold beer, and you can't afford Zibble.
That was really hard. I mean, it was hard. And there was one point along the way, I was, in a store, and I was just looking at the cold beverages. And, my hands on the glass,
Help me.
And the woman who ran the store said, "Well, how much money do you have?" And, and she allowed me to, I think it was like 65 cents. She allowed me to hand it all over, and she gave me a Snapple lemonade, even though I didn't have enough to really pay for it all.
Right. And somebody gave you a necklace.
Yes.
And it says Strayed.
That's right.
And somebody thought it said starved.
That's right. Well, my friend Laura sent me the necklace, yes, in honor of this new name that I had chosen for myself. And the Y, it was just simply cut from a different cast than the other letters. And so it has this funny effect of looking like a V, and then people read it. And so they would say, your necklace says starved, which was hilarious because, of course, in so many ways, both metaphorical and literal,
Sure.
I felt starved.
Where is it? Do you know?
Well, I still have it, and it's like in some box in my house. I need to go find it and dig it out and wear it.
And one of the hikers gave you a feather, a lovely feather.
I still have that from my friend Doug.
Yeah, and Doug's gone. Doug?
He is. 7 years after we finished our hike on the PCT, he was killed in a kite sailing accident.
Wow.
In New Zealand.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it goes on and on.
Yeah.
Who dubbed you the queen of the PCT?
Well, there are these three men who got the nickname the Three Young Bucks.
Right.
And I met them in Central Oregon, and they're still my friends today. And they just observed that everywhere we went, people would give me things. You know, luck was always on my side on my hike. And so they said, they called me the queen of the PCT. That's how I got that name.
So when you exit this mortal coil, I would suggest regrets, none. Je ne regrette rien for you.
Well, I think that even the things that I've experienced that were hard, you know, they make us who we are. And so no regrets.
Well, I know my experience reading Wild was, if you dream it, you can do it. I know that sounds a little trite, but you can do it.
You can do it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's one of the most important pieces of Wild is, you know, this isn't the best, bravest, boldest, biggest hike that anyone ever took. That's not the point of my book. You know, the point is I went and did something that was really hard for me and challenging for me, and I did it. And that if I can do it, you can do it too.
Yeah, I get it. And I know you cut your toothbrush in half to lighten the load in your pack, and you don't have to take condoms into the bush necessarily, but you'll have to read Wild to know for sure.
I recommend you take at least one condom
At
into the
least one,
woods.
yes. Why not?
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you. Cheryl Strayed, Wild, From Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail. And remember, you can catch our conversations on YouTube or follow me on Twitter at Fanny Kiefer. There'll be many more inspiring, adventurous guests to come. Thanks for watching Shaw TV and being here with me today.